Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. So Auckland's weather has been terrible lately. Today we are very lucky we get a little bit of fine break from raining, and we have two iconic front-wheel drive sports cars with us. One is the Golf GTI, the other one is my Civic Type R. So today I will do a comparison between these two cars from the outside, the inside, and do a drive and show you the driving impressions and also the similarities and differences between these two iconic front-wheel drive sports cars. So let's quickly look at the exterior of these two cars. GTI comes with a different front fascia from the normal Golf. You can see there's a red trim right in the front. The central vent is functional right here, but on either side these are blocked up. So in terms of the size of the air intake, it's actually not that large. We have the GTI badge on the side with red accent. The entire body shape is pretty much similar to a standard Golf. And at the back, we have the GTI badge in the center, LED tail lights, and we have the twin exhaust tips for the GTI. The wheels of the GTI, they are Goodyear Eagle F1s, and they are 225/40 R18 in the front. The rear wheels are the same. They are 225/40 R18s. So it's a square setup, just like the Type R. So the Golf GTI compared to the Civic Type R is a much smaller vehicle. The wheelbase of the Golf GTI is about 2.6 meters long, and the wheelbase for the Type R is about 2.7. And the overall length of the Golf GTI is about 4.3 meters long, and for the Type R it's about 4.6. So it's a much longer car. And in terms of width, the Type R is wider. The Type R is about 1.9 meters wide, and the Golf GTI is about 1.8 meters wide. So overall, the Type R is just a much bigger vehicle compared to the GTI. So looking at the outside of the Type R, it has a much wider stance, and also it's a much more different car than the standard Civic. Honda has done a lot of body work to the Type R compared to the standard Civic, where you can see that most of the body panels are different, where the front arches is wider. Also the rear arches are wider too, just to house the wider wheels. And the wheels are quite wide actually. They are Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, and they are 265 wide, both in the front and the back. The Type R also comes with much more aero design compared to the GTI. And also the front grille is very large, very wide for better cooling. It's a bigger setup than the GTI. And also we have a vent on the top to allow hot air to get out from the engine bay. We also have a vent at the rear of the front wheel arches and a nice side skirt. And at the back we have a very large rear wing at the back as well. At the rear of the Type R we have a functional diffuser, and also we have a tri-tip exhaust that's very special and iconic of the Type R. So overall, looking from the outside, the Type R looks much more aggressive and it feels a bit more special than the GTI. Honda has put in much more effort to differentiate it from the standard Civic, whereas the GTI seems more like just a cosmetic upgrade from the standard Golf. So let's look at the engine bay of the GTI. It comes with a 2-liter inline-4 turbo petrol engine that produces about 240 horsepower and 370 Newton meters of torque. The engine cover is quite large. It's quite plasticky, and the engine bay is fairly generous. the air box right here, you can see that the engine setup is different from the Type R, where the hot side, where the exhaust and the turbo is at the back of the engine. I think for the Type R, it's actually in the front. The turbo and the exhaust is also in the front. So it's probably better for cooling that way, because there's more cold air coming in from the front. So having the hot side in the front is probably a bit better setup for cooling. Let's look at the engine bay of the Type R. As you can see, the hot side, where the turbo and exhaust is at the front, right next to the radiator and the fan. So cold air coming in would be able to bring the hot air that's generated by the exhaust and the turbo out from the hood vent right here. So it's probably a better setup for cooling purposes. It has a more special engine cover with the red accent and also a Type R logo right in the front here. And the space is quite generous as well for the Type R. It's probably more so than the Golf GTI because it's a larger car, so it probably has more space to house the engine and more space around the engine, which is always good for cooling and for working on your engine as well. So moving to the inside of the GTI, you can see the fit and finish is actually quite good, but it feels a bit plasticky to me. These are all plastic materials. This as well, although it's soft. We have a gloss plastic trim right over here where the gear lever is. Nowadays, the gear lever for the Volkswagen group has all changed to this very small gear lever, electric gear lever, which I'm not particularly a fan of. We have the parking brake, auto hold, start stop button, and park right here. And this is a charging port. We have charging ports here. This is wireless charging. Cup holders, 12V, and a nice compartment right here. Everything inside for the GTI is pretty much cloth based. So you can see the GTI logo on the door. And we have a nice, very typical classic GTI cloth fabric on the seating. Also on the door card, there's a bit of Alcantara and leather where you can touch. So the soft touch points are lined with leather. But on the top, this is again plastic and plastic. We have a glove compartment right here and a linear air vent grill that goes all the way from the left to the right. In the center here, we have different buttons for your drive assists, your safety assist systems, your parking menu, your driving modes, and your climate control, and your hazard light right here. So one thing I noticed about the GTI compared to the Type R is it's more configurable. For example, if you go to background, there are all sorts of different colors you can choose from for your dashboard, your driver's dash. Right now it's in automatic, but you can go to individual and set your individual color if you like. So you go to individual, there are all sorts of colors to choose from. It's pretty amazing how customizable this is. And you can choose different moods, infinity, eternity, like different color preset color schemes. So this is pretty cool. And also if you go to the driver settings, for example, if you go to the mode and individual mode, if you press the configuration button, DCC, which is the suspension setting, you can set from comfort all the way to sport and even more like a sports plus. So the firmness changes from comfort, which is softer, to sport, which is firmer. So there are quite a few notches, quite a few levels for you to change. So the steering, again, comfort and sport, drive, sport, comfort, eco. This is probably for your engine output and your engine sound, Sport, Comfort, Eco, your ACC, your air conditioning. Over here on the driver's side, the steering wheel is actually quite nice. It's nicely bolstered with leather and the thickness is just right. And the shape is okay, although it has a flat bottom, but it's pretty rounded. So it's a nice steering wheel to use. On the left hand side, we have the controls for your cruise control and your volume. On the right hand side, this is for controlling your main driver's digital screen cluster with different views. You can press that. So we have a few different views. This is pretty cool. I usually just leave it over here for a more traditional look. The front seats of the GTI, the passenger side, also comes with isofixes for your child seat. Everything is manually adjusted for the front seats of the GTI, so very similar to the Type R. So looking at the rear passenger seats, the Golf GTI doesn't have that much legroom compared to the Type R because Type R has a longer wheelbase, but still plenty of room though for you to sit in. It's not too crampy, it's quite comfortable. Also, it comes with rear vents for the rear passengers that the Type R doesn't have. So the Type R, the rear passenger area is very dark because there are no lights at all. And for the GTI, there is ambient lighting, so that's really nice. So the GTI is definitely a very practical hot hatch. The boot space is not as long, as deep as the Type R, but it's still got quite a lot of space. And also under here there is a spare tire, which the Type R doesn't have. And also there is a hatch you can push open for your longer items. And these seats also fold down to give you more space for storage. Okay, so right now we're inside the Type R. I think the Type R interior feels just a bit more well designed, and quality wise is also very good. I like the simplicity of the Type R, and there's not too much gloss material, which I'm not a very big fan of. Although these are still plastic material, but then the overall feeling of the Type R just feels a bit more special, especially with these nicely bolstered red Type R bucket seats and the red carpet as well. Just feels a bit more special than the Golf GTI. We also have Alcantara on the soft touch points and ambient lighting for the front passenger. The dashboard is fully digital as well. On the left, we have the multimedia controls. On the right, we have cruise control and scroll buttons for controlling your central screen information. The central infotainment screen is also quite large, and I really like this Log R app, the Honda Log R app. It gives you a lot of performance stats and your car vitals. So this is something that's really cool about the Type R as well. Although it's not as configurable in terms of the looks, like the dash is basically not configurable. You only have set looks and designs for it. For example, sport and comfort. You can't change any of the colors. And if you go to the Plus R, it becomes a different design with the rev meter on the top and speed on the side. We have the Alcantara steering wheel with red stitching as well. That looks really nice. And a very large red Honda badge right in the center to remind you this is a Type R. And we have aluminium trim over here. That's really nice compared to the gloss trim of the GTI. And again, this is the best of them all. This is the 6-speed manual gearbox, whereas the GTI is a 7-speed DSG. Moving to the rear passenger seats, this is a 2+2 seating arrangement. So there's no central seating for the Type R. It only seats 4 people. there's also no air vent or charging ports for the rear passenger. That is a bit of a letdown. And also on the door side, there's no ambient lighting at all. The Type R has a very, very large rear boot space. It's very deep, very wide, so it holds more things than the Golf GTI. But under here, there's no spare tire. But overall, it's still very practical. We have anchor points for the child seat. We have anchor points for your nettings if you need them. And these seats also fold down to give you more storage space if you want them. Okay, so we're now in the Golf GTI and we're going for a drive. Right now, let's go to the comfort mode first. The Type R, even in comfort mode, feels quite firm. But in the GTI, in the comfort mode, it feels just like a normal Golf where you can just daily it very comfortably every day as a family car. Also the steering as well, very light, and the throttle response is not too aggressive in comfort mode, and the pickup is also very, very smooth. Let's try the sport mode. Yeah, so the sport mode, you can hear that the exhaust valve, I think it opens. So there's a bit more sound in the interior, which is a good thing. And the throttle response becomes much more aggressive. It has much more of the sports car feel now. And also there's pops and bangs from the exhaust. That's actually quite nice. I think the sound of the GTI is actually quite good. Compared to the Type R, it has a deeper tone. Although it has less power and torque than the Type R, but I feel the sense of pickup is actually quite good as well. I think it's because it's just a smaller vehicle, it's lighter as well. It's about 100 kgs lighter than the Type R. So the pickup is actually quite immediate, and also the maximum torque for this engine is lower than the Type R as well. The maximum torque comes in at 1,600 revs. I think for the Type R it comes in at around 2,500. So you get much better lower end torque in this vehicle, the GTI, than the Type R. So the initial pickup at low speed or initial acceleration feels quite good. So although the initial torque feels quite pokey, but once the rev builds, you can feel the power difference between the Type R and the GTI. This has much less power. So as the rev builds, you can feel this is not pushing us hard, not pulling us hard actually from front wheels. But for the Type R, as the rev builds, it's pulling harder and harder. That's where the power difference is pretty obvious. The 7-speed DSG is also very, very intuitive. It's very quick in its gear change. Whoa, turning the corner. A bit of bump. Pin it. Wow, a lot of wheel spin. The ground is quite wet, but the differential is working quite well. There is a front differential in between the front wheels, trying to manage the power output between the wheels. There's less torque steer, I find, in the GTI than the Type R, but the front end grip, I feel, is less than the Type R. Also, in terms of turning, the turning sensation, the turn in, and also when you are going through some twisty roads, like I'm doing now, there's more understeer than the Type R. And there's definitely much more body roll as well. Even though we are in the firmer settings, the suspension right now is in sport, but you can still feel the body roll and the understeer as well. The Golf GTI definitely feels less focused in terms of performance compared to the Type R. It's just the power output, the handling, is just not quite on par with the Type R. And also the DSG gearbox, although it's very good, but just not as engaging as the 6-speed manual in the Type R. And also the flappy pedals on the steering wheel, they don't feel that great. They are plastic, and also they are very, very tiny. So doesn't give you that excitement in terms of using these flappy pedals. So jumping into the cockpit of the Type R, I immediately feel it's a more special cabin. The entire cabin, the quality, the color, the design, I just prefer it much more than the Golf GTI. So in comfort mode, the ride is a bit firmer than the GTI. I think this is a more focused car, so everything just feels a bit more stiffer, a bit more firmer, a bit more tighter than the GTI, even in comfort mode. So if you want to drive this as a daily, you can, but it's just not as comfortable as the GTI. And in comfort mode, the engine output and the throttle response is toned down. You can feel a big difference once you push it into Sport or Plus R. So let's try the Sport mode. Yeah, the Type R definitely has a quicker steering, and also the turn-in sensation is very neutral. There's not much understeer, so the feeling of turning in is very, very nice compared to where the Golf R has a bit of understeer and it rolls quite a bit. It's a different sensation. So let's now try the individual mode, where I set up everything to maximum attack plus R for engine, for sound, but just the suspension is in Sport, because in Plus R suspension, it's actually very, very firm and it's not very suited for road use. So let's give it a bit of a push. Full throttle. Oh, wheel spin. Second gear into the corner. Yeah, the turning in is much sharper and much more aggressive and neutral. It feels much more nimble actually compared to the GTI. Funny enough, it's a bigger car. I think the sound is actually on par with the Golf GTI. They're both not great in the sound department. Not that loud, not that exciting. Yeah, but I think in terms of the performance, the cornering, and the power delivery, the Type R is definitely a much more superior vehicle than the GTI. And I really love the 6-speed manual gearbox in the Type R. It's so engaging, and also it's so easy to shift through the gears and feels so good in your hand, like rolling through the gears. The front differential in the Type R is also really good. Manages the power really well. Put the power down. But you can feel there's a bit more torque steer than the GTI. The brakes for the Type R is also very strong. I think it has a better brake feel than the GTI somehow. Wow, the front differential trying to manage the power through wet corner. But yeah, I like the brakes. It's very, very strong and very linear. Pretty amazing. It was a fun comparison between these two iconic front-wheel drive sports cars. I think the Golf GTI is actually a very good package. It's got good build quality, it's got a bit of performance, got a lot of practicality, and the interior customizability is also very high. And there are little details in the interior that is better than the Type R. The Type R is a different vehicle, I think, compared to the GTI. It's more focused in performance, although it's larger, but when I was driving it through the corners, it feels much more nimble than the GTI somehow. And it's got more power and more performance than the GTI as well. So as a performance vehicle, I think the Type R is a much better performance vehicle. And also in terms of the looks, I think the Type R looks much more aggressive and much more special and different from the standard Civic, whereas the GTI, the outside, the exterior look, and also the interior is very similar to the standard Golf. Also in terms of its price range, right now the Type R is around 72,000 New Zealand dollars and the GTI is about 65,000 New Zealand dollars. Although there's a price difference, but I think the Type R is actually quite bang for buck. For me personally, I would go for the Type R than the GTI because I just think it's a bit more special, it's more focused, and it's still got the practicality as well. So thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this comparison video, and please subscribe and hit that like button and notification button to help us out, and we'll be bringing you more contents like this. And please stay tuned. Thank you again for watching. Bye.